Hi folks, how you doing? This is Iqbal with NVIDIA Daily Analysis. So NVIDIA moved sideways today. No major increase or decrease. Let's discuss what should we expect next week using historical data analysis, technical charts, and economic data. Starting with the daily summary, NVIDIA opened at 105.64. It made a high 106.60. It made a low 103.43 and it closed at 104.75. That is 0.21% down. So today, Nvidia's stock movement was almost directionless. You see, Nvidia tried to go up after opening, but then went down and then up and down and up. So this tells that the volatility in Nvidia stock and overall market is still there, and I guess it will stay for some time. At the same time, I'm not expecting a big drop next week unless we have a change in the geopolitical scenario, meaning the attack from one country to another in the Gulf region. Another thing we need to pay attention is the economic data gonna be published next week, and that's very important. And that's a CPI, PPI, and the weekly jobless claim. So next week, stock movement would also depend on the results of those data. We'll talk about those data sometime later in this video. Now, moving on, last 5 days, Nvidia is still up 13.8%. Last 1 month, Nvidia down 20.27%. And last 6 months, Nvidia is still up 45.22%. So, my bottom line estimate that I set last week and this week, that was 88 or 89. I guess that was a very good bottom line point, and Nvidia so far did not go below that level in last 2 weeks. And to those who still have not bought Nvidia shares or still waiting to buy Nvidia, I guess below 100 at this point is a good buy point for Nvidia. I'm not sure Nvidia would go below 100 next week or not, but if it does, then probably it will be a good deal. Now let's take a look the weekly price changes for Nvidia and see how the trend looks like. You see candlestick chart for Nvidia on the weekly interval. You can take a look last 3 weeks prior to this week. Nvidia closed negative. You see, but this week Nvidia closed positive. So that's a good sign. I guess that's close to this region or behavior that shows 4 negative closing weeks in a row. And after that, we got some positive green weeks. So that's what I'm expecting next week. If no major surprises on the data or any political situation internationally, then there is no reason Nvidia to go down. So Nvidia should close positive next week as well. Now let's take a look forward PE for Nvidia. Forward P at this point is at 36.60, and that is much lower than the average of the last 7 or 8 weeks of the forward PE. Palantir at this point is 90.9. It continues to go up. Palantir before the earnings announcement was a very good buy. SMCI 16.01. So similar situation is much lower than the last 7 or 8 weeks of average of the forward PE. And AMD at this point is 37.51, kind of about the same level what we saw last week. It's 38.18 versus 37.51. Now let's take a look historical data and behavior for Nvidia. So Nvidia at this quarter so far 14% up from the previous earnings announcement. And if you take a look the trend, it continues to go down after second month, you see. So hopefully it might get some positive momentum before the earnings. And my position is still the same. I think that before the earnings, Nvidia should touch 115. Now, let's take a look technical charts, starting with the Fibonacci levels. So I selected 75.96 and 140.56. That was all-time high. So as I mentioned yesterday and day before yesterday, that this week Nvidia should move between 115 and 89. So that's what happened. Nvidia still did not go below 89 or did not touch 115 as well. So 89 is a very strong support level at this point. So any major event, for example, major surprise on the economic data for next week or any attack next week can change the situation. If that doesn't happen, I still think that Nvidia should be moving sideways early next week, and there is very minimal chance that Nvidia goes down again 91 or 92 that we saw early this week or last week. Now let's take a look MACD. You see 90-day hourly interval chart for Nvidia and also the MACD chart. You see the MACD line, that's the blue line, is still showing a very weak momentum at this point today and also yesterday compared with the one that we saw early this week and last week. So based on the MACD as well, it shows that the next week we should not see a huge spike or drop. Now let's take a look RSI. If you take a look RSI chart at this point, RSI in an hourly chart is at 52, and that also suggests Nvidia is neither overbought nor oversold in the short term. The next week, the chances of big movement is minimal in the absence of any surprising data. Now, let's take a look some news regarding Nvidia. The very top one is talking about the volatility. Expect volatility to persist through end of 2024. So earlier in this video, I had the same opinion that the volatility should continue, but I'm not expecting it would last that long. So now this one that says that Nvidia tries for a rebound, here is what you need to know. So that's correct, right? In the morning, Nvidia tried to go up, but it did not have enough momentum to go further up. Why? Because there was no other data or news supporting Nvidia upside movement. So all the news and the data is pretty old, and Nvidia price already adjusted or absorbed those news in the current stock price. So now this one that says that Mizuho Securities adjust price target on Nvidia to 132 from 127.5. So that's a good thing. They raised the price target for Nvidia. So now this one is a good one that says TSMC, that is Taiwan Semiconductor, stock gains after sales surge. Why it is still shaking off the Trump trade? Let's take a look. You see, in last 5 days, Taiwan Semiconductor went up about 25%, and that's a very good movement in just a short period of time. So this also tells that the optimism on the AI business and outlook is still there, and Taiwan Semiconductor is getting strong orders. And since TSMC is a major supplier for Nvidia, so that's why I think in the next earnings, Nvidia should show a strong sales guidance for the future. It might get a little hit on the earnings, but overall sales and the revenue, I think they will report good numbers. And also this one is probably about the similar news that says Nvidia stock gains, what TSMC sales mean for the chip maker. So as we noted, TSMC stock went up and that should help Nvidia as well in the future. Now, this is a good one for Nvidia stockholders. Nvidia's fundamentals are still extremely strong, says Bank of America Securities Vivek Arya. So, yeah, that's not something new, right? We already know that Nvidia's future outlook is very strong. We don't have to worry about in the long-term future. So these, temporary headwinds will go away once we get more clarity on the economic data in next few weeks or so. Now, this one that doesn't look good for Nvidia. So this guy Dan Niles say Nvidia's shares are yet to hit a 2024 low. So he thinks that Nvidia should go further down in 2024. Let's take a look. So the reason why he says that his biggest concern for Nvidia is that chip supply is catching up with the demand. Yeah, maybe somewhat true. The supply situation for next quarter or two can get hit. Supply issues or supply shortages may come in the picture again. So you never know, right? So it's unpredictable variable at this point. And if that happens, then it will add pressure on Nvidia stock, and Nvidia stock can go further down. But at this point, we cannot predict when that's gonna happen. Now let's take a look other AI stocks. So on my watch list, the highest negative change is in SoundHound, that is 6.5%. After that is AMD 1.5% down, and SMCI 0.23% down, NVIDIA 0.21% down. All other stocks are positive in my watch list. So that tells that overall the market was mixed today, and I guess that should be the case for early next week as well. Now let's take a look economic calendar for next week. So you see that on Tuesday we're getting PPI data, and Wednesday we are getting CPI data, and Thursday the weekly initial jobless claim. So those data are very important to decide next week movement for Nvidia and other AI stocks and overall market. I will make a separate video on CPI and PPI and their impact on Nvidia stock price. Probably I'll make sometime tomorrow or on Sunday. So I guess that's all about Nvidia analysis and assessment for early next week. I hope you liked the video. Thank you so much for watching. Talk to you more in the next video. Take care.